Hello guys. You are on the channel Alice Reddit Stories. Enjoy watching. Story 1. Here's a horribly juicy tale of heartbreak. I, 36/F, met 36/M while we were both in a substance abuse treatment program. Yes, I know this is very frowned upon in that community. The treatment center was co-ed and there were basically no rules about communicating or hanging out with the opposite sex except that spending too much time with male or female one-on-one was frowned upon. The rules were so loose in every way. Honestly, there had only been one other couple that I had knowledge of during my time there, but I digress. We were allowed to have our phones, and when you had entered the second phase of your treatment, you were allowed to leave the campus. I really want to point out that I did not go there with any intention of finding love. When I went, I was fleeing an 11-year-long physically abusive relationship which I was able to find the strength to end while I was there. This was huge for me. I was finally free. The world looked totally different to me. It was so incredible. I was also clean after a year and a half relapse, and so I was feeling physically great too. Now enters, let's call him AH. He, 36/M, was really struggling. He would have whole days where he lamented about how his wife, I'm not sure of her age, was just absolutely done with him. Their marriage had supposedly been over and awful for a long time. She was done with him, and had been alternating between radio silence and having to talk in regards to their children. In the state they live in, you must be separated from your spouse for 1 year before you can get divorced. AH and I had so much in common. We shared the same sense of humor, the same taste in music, many similar struggles, and more. We got to know each other through many group discussions and one-on-one discussions. I will say there was an instant attraction to him on my part for many reasons. I was excited and also terrified. As we got closer and more involved, it was like he was a new person. He was happy, this man was glowing. He was laughing where he had been sulking, he was social where he had been constantly isolating. I saw every visible sign of him really falling in love with me. One day he announced that it was absolutely done. His wife had listed their home, and she was moving back to where her friends and family were. During this time we were able to start leaving the campus. I won't lie, things between us escalated very quickly. The sex was more than amazing. Even just sitting on the beach having heart-to-heart conversations with his arms around me felt incredible. The butterflies in my stomach were constant. I felt like I was falling in love for the first time all over again. I felt like a teenager with the biggest crush, but on steroids. This was incredible. I believed everything he said. I really fell hard for this guy. He said he loved me. He freaking cried when he said it. He was so affectionate and sweet. He was so funny and compelling. He was just a very strange dream come true. I decided that I would be willing to relocate in order to be close to him. We weren't going to move in together or anything, but I knew a girlfriend that was close to where he was, and when we discussed this at great length, acknowledging the hurdles and complications we would encounter, we got excited about the future. Around this time, we both met our release dates for treatment, and followed the second portion of our plans. We went together to a mutual friend's house in a city that I had always thought to be beautiful and wanted to explore. I noticed that he was texting with his wife a little more than usual. He would say she was batshit and stalking him, or she was just starting fights on purpose, but always that it was her being in the wrong. He painted her as totally nuts, playing awful games with him, threatening him, etc. She found my social media accounts and started doing intrusive things. Things that a woman who has no interest in someone probably wouldn't do. I asked some questions, but was always reassured that he loved me and wanted so badly to be with me. I bit hook, line, and sinker. Pathetic. I suspected something wasn't right. I started getting scared. I started feeling like I had so blindly followed him and trusted him without being 1000% sure that he was truly not with her anymore. She got my phone number and was texting me, wanting to talk to me, asking how I would feel if I were in her shoes. Well, what exactly did that mean? It suddenly began to dawn on me that I was involved with someone who was actually not about to get divorced. He was full of shit, thoroughly. So, eventually, his wife shows up to where we were staying and demanded that he speak to her. I knew this was the end. My heart was already broken. I was so disappointed in myself for not having enough common sense to see what was really going on. I felt like I had been drawn into a situation where I thought things were beautiful, but I was really just being used as an ugly weapon to hurt another person. He agreed to leave with her and return to their home. They were going to get marriage counseling, LOL, and there I was, left alone feeling stupid AF. How on earth did I not catch this? How could I have fallen for something like this? Was I getting used for sex? For a rush? For revenge? I relapsed, and relapsed hard. I tried to drink the pain away. Of course it didn't work, made it worse, naturally. I think I loved this guy. If not love, my feelings were very real and very strong. So is the hurt and confusion. When I came back home, I got back on the wagon. I'm 16 days clean and sober today. I'm trying to just keep doing the next right thing, but damn, my heart hurts. I guess I'm embarrassed, and if I'm being totally honest, I'm angry with him. Story 2. Cheated on while deployed overseas. This is an old story, so you can expect it to be a bit long. I guess the best place to start is the backstory. I was in the Marines for a little over a year when we met, and she was in her first year of college. I had come home on leave for Christmas, and you may assume that when I come home my friends try and throw a party to welcome me back. Being in the infantry, I don't get to come home much, so they try to make a big deal about it. We met at the party. She was a friend of someone I knew from high school. We ended up talking for a while and swapped numbers. Not much else happened that night. The following day we texted back and forth and ended up planning to go on a date the day before I have to go back. The date went well, and we found we have a lot of things in common, and we wanted to keep talking, but we also agreed to not put a label on it. Small note: a few months before her and I met my high school sweetheart, and I split because she cheated, so I had no want to date anyone. Fast forward a few months to spring break. My unit is in the middle of a workup for our deployment, a week in the barracks and a week in the field training, but most of the time we have weekends to ourselves. She wanted to come down with her friends and spend a week at Myrtle Beach, about an hour's drive. So on the weekend me and a few friends decided to drive down and meet up with them and party. It was great. We hooked up and hung out a lot, and by the end of the weekend we became official. Pre-deployment leave came around and I spent 3 weeks home saying goodbyes, I love yous, and making sure everything would be okay if I didn't make it home. We spent almost every day together. She went with me to see my grandparents, aunts and uncles, cousins and friends. She was the driving force, telling me I need to go see everyone. We had even spent some time with her family. I had talked to them when her and I were on FaceTime, but it was the first time we had actually met each other. But her family had already liked me. It all went over very well. Next thing you know, I'm in small FOB in Afghanistan getting shot at. We only had one sat phone for the whole platoon, so I didn't get a lot of time with it, and when I did it wasn't for long. So I had to rotate my time between my parents and her. I knew my parents would call everyone else for me, so it was just them. I always called on Friday nights their time, and it was a week I would call her, so I called, no answer. I called again, no answer. The third time I called, she picked up. There was a lot of background noise, so I asked if she was busy, and she said she's at a party. I told her it was no big deal, that everything was fine with me, and she should go enjoy herself. Right after, I said that some guy called out to her, and she said she had to go and hung up. Now, I'm not normally a jealous person, but I felt pretty pissed, and my squad noticed. I usually try to be the guy that cheers everyone up, the class clown of the platoon, but I was too angry or annoyed to care. I just went silent, and my SQ leader tried to talk to me. I told him what happened. I also said that I get that it was probably all in my head, but I feel it in my gut that she's cheating. He asked if I wanted to be benched for a while, but I jokingly asked if he was kidding, that the headspace I'm in I could conquer the country on my own. He scoffed and said okay. A few days later, we were conducting a patrol. We were in a spot on the road that is known to have IEDs. My team was told to walk ahead of the vehicles to look for anything that might indicate that something was there, like wires, overturned dirt, or stacked rocks. I took point. We walked probably 500 yards with the trucks a bit behind us, and an IED went off on the right side of the road. I don't know how close it was, but it blew me back and some shrapnel hit my legs. I don't really know how to explain this, but it was like an out-of-body experience. I could see my body on the ground, such an odd feeling. I snapped back and turned my head and could see my corpsman and my team starting to run to me as another IED went off on the left side that picked me up and threw me onto my face. I don't remember this next part, but my corpsman told me that when he got to me, I muttered "Jesus Christ" twice. My parents were notified what had happened, but on my pre-deployment leave, I told my father if I get wounded not to tell her. I just didn't want her to worry, and he agreed. I spent some time in a hospital, but most my wounds, brain injury, couldn't really be treated, so eventually I got to go home. I told my GFS parents I was sent home, and they wanted to surprise her. I agreed. Like I said in the beginning of this essay, she was in college about an hour away, so we drove up and arrived around 10:30 p.m. Her parents had a key, so they opened the door. Her parents lead the way to her room and opened the door. We had all gotten in and flipped the lights on. We noticed another person in her bed. I ripped the blankets off. She was in her underwear, and he was in boxers and a t-shirt. I snatched him by his shirt, lifted him, and slammed him onto the ground. Before I could do anything else, her dad stopped me, and I walked out before she could say anything. I ended up calling one of my friends to come get me a few blocks from her apartment. Her and her parents called repeatedly, but I just texted her mom and told her that a friend is coming to get me, and they all stopped. The following months, while doing PT and being diagnosed with TBI, she tried to worm her way back into my life, but I had to remind myself of that day and how it felt to see that all the time. We talked once and I asked her how it started, and she told me they first hooked up at a party, and I asked, was it the night I called you, and she responded yes. It actually made me kind of happy to know how much I should trust my gut. If you're in the military, remember Jody is real. It's better to just be single. Sorry for the long read, just wanted to put this out there, finally get it off my chest. It's been years, but it still stings a bit. I've had relationships since then, but they never go over well. The damage she did to me was worse than any of the wounds I received on the battlefield. I no longer have the ability to trust or to fully commit to anyone. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel. There are many interesting stories ahead of you.